the green light.
Nerd! Get the nerd!
All right, guys, it's the day after 4th of July, and we are here with the Bid Nerds. I think it's a holiday or something, like a federal holiday. Banks aren't open, but Bring a Trailer is. So we're here for you guys. Bid Nerds, your daily nerd out on the most interesting cars of the day on all the automotive enthusiast auction sites. But there's only one today, P-Car Market. They're... they're down there in Long Island doing whatever Long Island people do on a holiday, so they're not working. Cars and Bids, they're not working. But come on, let's face it, Doug DeMuro doesn't do anything. Rad For Sale, they're taking a break. They're getting ready for Rad Wood this weekend. Hello, Michael Deeb. How are you, partner?
Buenos dias. Happy Cinco de Julio.
Just I don't know what that means, but I'm gonna be like, okay, sounds perfect.
I'll pretend like it's Spanish for 5th of July, but I don't speak Spanish,
okay. I love Julio. Okay, well, there it is, guys. We're here. That was the show. Take care. Bye. We'll see you next week. My name is John Polnik. I'm your host, along with my partner, Michael Deeb. What we do on this show is we nerd out on the most interesting cars of the day. There are so many cars on any given Monday through Friday going up for auction on all these auction sites, so we try to whittle it down to the most interesting ones. So you don't have to. We'll just get right to those cars and say, hey, here's what's cool about those cars. Here's what's not so cool about those cars. And the most interesting part, we make predictions as to what we think they will actually sell for when the hammer hits the auction block at the or the sound block at the end of their individual auctions. Sometimes we have nerds on, like a third nerd guest. The last show we did was on Thursday.
Yeah, with Jake from Overcrest. What's Jake's last name? Not Sullivan. Solberg. That's
so he was here with us, and that was awesome, and he did pretty good.
He was great,
if I remember correctly. Yeah.
No, he didn't. He didn't do very good in the predictions, but he was a great guest.
All right. Well, he sucked then. Sorry, Jake. You were terrible at it.
He got one, but he didn't come in and
which means Michael Deeb will offer you will invite you back, unlike your
absolutely.
Partner.
He's my favorite guest we've ever had. Yeah, totally.
No, it was great to have Jake here. Love those guys. If you recall, if you watch, go back and watch Thursday's episode. It was a lot of fun. We did have Jake from Overcrest, as well as his partner Chris popped in.
That was funny.
He had a few points to make. He was, was he incensed? He was pretty ticked.
He was defending the merit of the 560 SEC. That was pretty funny.
Well, let's get to those cars. We always start off every episode by going over our predictions because we don't know what we're talking about, and we try to make that very clear up front by going over the predictions that we got wrong from the previous day. So let's get to it. Last Thursday, we had a pretty interesting lineup of cars because we had Jake in town, or at least on the show. So what cars we started with, we always start with a Porsche, right? We had that GT3, the black GT3.
The black GT3, what a great car, JP. This thing was pretty sweet. The 2018 with a manual and no miles or something. We certainly thought that this car would break the bank. I don't know. Maybe I was a little more pragmatic about it. They're bringing over sticker, and this one was pretty spectacular with buckets and ceramics and all that, and a manual. Also double black, right? Black leather and black exterior. So I went 214. You went crazy and said 250, and then Jake said 199. Our car sold for 211,000 and was one of my bright spots for the week.
I did go pretty dang strong on that, and at 211, it's selling at 211.
That car's on P-Car.
Yeah, I think that was a steal. I think the person that bought that car bought it well. Yeah, you're seeing these for $250 all over the place. You cannot go buy a new GT3. Can't buy one. You can give a dealership money for one and wait for it for a year. You're not going to drive it this summer. You're certainly not going to drive it to Car Week or something like that. You're not going to go to Luftkult or any of that stuff. You're going to have to wait.
But JP, that's $30,000 over sticker. 3 years later, that's ludicrous, man.
That's only ludicrous if you could get another car. I mean, that's the thing about cars. They're such new cars typically are bad investments because you buy it and what happens? You drive it off the lot and of course it depreciates immediately. And that's because these manufacturers just keep making more and more cars, so there's always another car to replace it with. If you want a GT3, what do you get?
Yeah, if Godin sold 24 of these things, let's just say hypothetically, they sold 24 of these things, they didn't get 30 grand over per copy. They just didn't. So the fact that PCAR and BaT are bringing 30 grand plus to all these consigners is just it's a head scratcher, man. It doesn't make any sense.
I don't understand how
the supply
it
and
doesn't
demand.
make sense. Yeah.
Well, I get the supply and demand aspect of it, but it just seems like a bad bet. Like I'd rather wait than spend 30 grand on a car that's a generation old now. That the new .1 is out and we'll run circles around this. I know you can't get one. I get all that, but like I just don't understand the have to have it that you'd spend 30 grand over in today's market. That just doesn't make sense.
I don't know. I feel like there's people that want. I mean, if you don't have a car like this and you want one, what else are you gonna do? I mean, that's the price of admission. I got that. It doesn't make sense to me. Like as somebody that would want this car, I wouldn't pay 30 over for it. I would just be like, oh, tough luck. I'll have to wait until the market cools, or there's a better option out there. I wouldn't go 30 over for it. That's just that to me is a bad bet. The question is, do you think that the prices are going to come down? Because
yes,
you do. Okay.
Eventually, the 992 GT3s will hit the market, and these things will soften up everywhere. I mean, I think they will, but that might take time. That might be 6 months from now.
Okay, so I mean that does make sense. Okay, they finally deliver more cars, but I mean we know Porsche does not flood markets. They know better. They know that they need to keep the prices up. Plus, we have an inflationary angle here, which could be double-digit inflation here very quickly, which would mean that these prices are going to stay high.
Porsche is not as pure of heart as you think. If there are when the dealer wants a car, they get say they get an allocation, they call it a bucket, and they get 20 allocations, but they put in 50 order demands. Porsche will build more cars. They did that with the .1 GT3 RS. They brought however many cars to market, and then they released another 600 cars for the U.S. market, and that wiped out the values of those cars.
You're talking about the GT2, right?
No, GT the 991. .1 GT3 RS, the car I used to have. I got my car, and then Porsche released another 600 allocations, and that just where people were speculating. I could have taken my car when I got it, and literally I had two friends in my ear telling me sell the car. I literally could have asked $100,000 over sticker for my car. I don't know. I'm not saying I would have got it, but I could have asked it, and I had the right car. It's just white and black with buckets and stitching and the whole shit. It was a good build. But shortly after I got it, that window of opportunity to make crazy money on my car and probably burn. And the reason why I didn't do it is I didn't want to burn my good name with my local dealer. I was like, I'm not going to do that. I could have got that, but in retrospect, maybe I should have. That I'm sure many people would have. But I wanted my car. I wanted to keep my car. I felt special to have it. And 2 months later, Porsche released another 600 allocations, and then I didn't feel so special. My car wasn't worth shit. And, I mean, it's just the way it goes. Market ebbs and flows.
They did the same thing.
Yeah.
It's not a purity test. It's not that Porsche's like, oh, we're going to hold back on these cars because we only want so many people to have them. It's not that at all. In fact, I think it's the exact opposite. Porsche knows that if they're going to keep the prices up, they have to limit supply. When they did the car that you were talking about, demand was absurdly high, and there was a lot of money and a lot of demand, and they had the capability to make cars. I don't know, one, if how soon they're going to have the capability of producing an S-ton more cars, and two,
meeting current demand.
I mean, again, if there is a downturn in the economy, it's not going to be like it was last time, where last time you had this downturn and now there's no money in the system, and so prices just plummeted. This time, if there's going to be a problem, yes, there may be a lowering of demand, but the prices aren't going to go down because there's too much money in the system. You're going to have weird stagflation things. So Porsche is a bunch of hedge fund managers that run that place. They know better than you and I do how to keep the values up. Yeah,
absolutely. The last point I'm going to make is this: the market ebbs and flows, and I've been playing in it and been a fan of the cars long enough to have seen it go up and down a couple of times. Believe it or not, JP, and this will make you laugh, and anybody that knows us will crack up when they hear this. When I bought my first car, it was a 997.2 GT3. It was 2010, and I took delivery of it in the week of Thanksgiving in 2009. Wrap your brain around this. I got a $5,000 discount on that car from my dealer. Wow. $5,000 discount on my car. I mean, it's absolutely bananas. And when I sold it 3.5 years later, I sold it at the absolute wrong time. If I had held on to it 6 months later, I would have got $25,000, $30,000 more for the car. If I sold it at the absolute worst time. But the market has gone up and down enough times that I would just say, while you're right, that's the price of to play right now is 30 grand up on a car. I would just say for my money, I would wait. I just wouldn't pay 30 grand up on a generational GT3. That just doesn't make sense. If it was an RS, it makes more sense because usually they build less of them. But as great as this car is, I think this car is going to tank 6 to 8 months from now.
We, in our lifetime, our adult lifetime, have not seen an economy correction like we're probably coming up for. That's not. I'm not being a doomsday thing.
No.
We watch the market go up and down because we can say, okay, boom bust. For the last 30 years, we have not seen what is probably going to happen next, and I think it's going to be weird, man.
Yeah, interest rates will go up, and that'll cool the market, and then the correction will follow gently. And it will be pretty severe. Believe it or not, I've been waiting 4 years to buy some dirt in Las Vegas, and I'm waiting for the correction you're speaking of. So,
but what I'm saying here is the thing that we're talking about. The difference is that the prices will not go down. Every other correction has had a correlation with lower prices. This time, the prices won't go down. This time, you're going to have the slowdown without the dropping of prices because there's too much money. We've never had double-digit inflation in your. I mean, you're about the same age that I am. The last time there was double-digit inflation, it was the 70s, right? This was our parents' problem. We've never seen the problem that's coming. So it'll be really weird to see, a market slow down, but with prices stay just as high or actually go up. So be prepared for that. That is a very real possibility. I'm not saying it's going to happen because, like we said, I'm wrong all the time. We're don't know what we're talking about. But be prepared for the possibility that prices may not go down for a very long time.
Interesting.
But so anyways, whatever. It's going to be a really interesting way to see what happens next.
That's as deep a dive as we've taken on any car. And it's probably yours and I's, like putting a vacuum. That's like probably our favorite car. Can you imagine a manual GT3? I mean, like it just, that's it, So it's interesting that this particular car doesn't cause controversy, but there's a lot to be said about that result. It's very interesting.
Yeah,
I agree with you. I think there was money left on the table too. I wouldn't be surprised if that car had brought more money on a different platform, or maybe with a little better photos and video or something.
Yeah, for sure. All right. Well, what else? There was another Porsche that we talked about on the same day.
Okay, let's go to the 07 997 Targa 4. Do you remember this car?
I do, yeah. All
right, take a look at that. I said 62,000 for this car. You said 70, and then Jake said 58. He was certainly.
Yeah, you guys balked at me. You thought I was bonkers. I was like, no problem.
Wrong all the time. JP, that car sold for $68,000. You were right. Interesting. I get it. I say I don't think people pay a premium for these cars, but I stand corrected. That's I would think that's above market value, don't you?
I'm not at all. I mean, it's a Target. It had low miles. I think I said on that episode that I wouldn't buy this car. The miles were too low, and it puts it in a situation where there's a lot of maintenance that wasn't done by the factory.
Oh yeah, wasn't this like a sub 10,000 mile car?
Yeah, exactly. And it was crazy low. But the people that are buying and paying all the money for cars, they just look at low miles. It's crazy how someone who really doesn't know this car that well would pay top dollar for it. That's what's bonkers to me, is that someone that's like, oh my gosh, I got to get a 997. 997s are coming up in value. Here's one with low miles. And you don't know anything about bore scoring and IMS and camshaft seals and all those other things that wind up going wrong with these. Really? You don't know anything about that? That shocks me. But I think the big reason why this one came went for so much money is because, like we said the other day, it comes with an airplane. It's there it is. You get a Cessna.
Oh my goodness.
No, it's a convertible with a hard top, so it gives the cabrio-phobe something that they can buy and still have the top come down. I don't know. It is a weird place. I definitely prefer the old school Targas and the new school Targas. I don't know what the hell they were thinking with this car.
Yeah. All right. We jump over to BaT. That car was on BaT, but let's jump over and look at the 1991 Mercedes-Benz 560 SEC. This car did cause controversy because Jake didn't like it. So Chris beamed into the show to defend the honor of the W126 platform. Anyway, I said 25,000. You said 30. Jake said 20 because he didn't like it. And that car.
Hold on. I did not say 30,000. I channeled the Sweeze from above. I was ordained by the Church of Patrick Swayze. And
Roadhouse is the movie that we're talking about. Yeah,
this is the quintessential. This is the Roadhouse car. Actually, his was an '88, and this is a '91 or something like that. So this is the last version of that great car. So this is really you can say that this is a chariot of a god. I mean, right here, this might be one of the greatest cars of all time. And I think Jake wanted to slap me through the internet across the face when I said $30,000. He thought I was so bonkers. How much did this car go for?
This car sold for $32,000 on BaT. So you and the Sweeze were correct.
That is correct. Thank you.
Oh, and Jake from Overcast, who defended the honor of this car, he also put in a bid of $23,500. So I'm sorry.
Oh, you mean
Jake
Chris?
Jake was at 20. Chris was at 23.5. I was at 25. You were at 30, and the car brought 32. So,
anyways, even Chris was like, "Oh yeah, it's worthless." I'm like, "No, it's not. What are you talking about?"
Yeah. He thought the car was amazing and shouldn't be bashed, but he just simply wouldn't pay for it. And at 23.5, he missed it by 10 grand. I mean, that's just hilarious. So
there you go. You got to go to church, man. That's what I'm saying. You got to go to church and pray to the altar of Roadhouse. Okay, well, let's hear some American cars here. We talked about a Corvette. A Vet, yo.
Pain don't hurt. 1991 VW Vanagon Karat Weekender. You went to Corvette. I'll go to Corvette. Okay, 2007 Chevrolet Corvette Z06. This is the what's his name? The special edition. I forget already. Ron Fellows, the Ron Fellows edition, the Canadian race car driver. Super low miles, JP. I think this car had like 2,000 miles. They're numbered, but there's 400 of them. Like every special edition of Corvette, they make them in ridiculous quantities. I thought that this car would bring a premium, and I was correct. I said 48 when you guys got done laughing at me. You said 46.5, and Jake said 45, which are actually all in the hunt for this car, but our car did bring the over at $51,000, where it failed to sell and wound up in the deal tank on PCAR Market for $57,500. So anyway, but that result is hardly interesting. What is more interesting is the 1991 VW Vanagon Karat Weekender that Buddha recommended for Esther and I. Really nice car. I said 12,000. You said 11, and Jake said $9,700 for this modified and slightly updated on the inside Weekender. Our car failed to sell at $10,100, which is basically the one that Jake got correct. So you get the score on that one. JP, last week was just an annihilation. I had 5 to your 15. That's all that needs to be said. Moving on.
Sorry about that. It's crazy some of the results that we're seeing on cars on all these auction sites. And obviously, you and I we discuss the platform. We discuss what's going on in the market. And again, we don't know what we're talking about. But there are some crazy results going on out there. I had a conversation with our friend Jim over at PCAR Market on, I think it was Friday, about, we didn't do a show on Friday, but no. I think if we had queued up this
RS replica
car. Yeah. If you guys didn't get a chance to see this car, there's an interesting story about this one. Stand by here.
It's a 2012 Porsche 991S RS replica. So basically, they made it look like a 991.1 GT3 RS Cabriolet, and the bodywork on it is very, very faithful, even if the drivetrain is still just sort of plain Jane 911S. So very, very interesting looking car. And I would say peerless. Where are you going to find another one? Who else in the world would spend the money to make it look exactly like a GT3 RS? So JP, what else do you know about this car?
Well, I mean, I don't want to give too much information here, but I will say that this car was brought to P-Car Market, and they talked about the seller had a really high reserve, and they basically worked with them and got it. So it did. I think the car failed to sell
It sold.
It sold, but I think it sold in the deal tank though.
I'm gonna look it up real quick. You keep talking.
Yeah, because I mean, this is just such a unique car, and it was just interesting. We'll have to get Jim back on here, and he can talk about the conversation he had with the owner of this car and how he kind of talked him off a ledge on this car, and I think ultimately it wound up selling. I really, really, really hate and both hate and love this car. I love the idea of taking a cab and making it look like an RS, but that wing just does not, and it's too much red. But this car, and again, obviously, if it were a manual, it would be so much better. But it's just, I think it's something that people used to do with their old Porsches. It's just not uncommon to see somebody put a wide body kit on an old 911 or change the bumpers. A wide body kit is something that people don't like, but everybody changes their bumper. How often do you see somebody put an RS, splitter or an RSR splitter on the front of their regular Carrera, or something like that, or ST?
993 cab,
or their 993 cab. That's controversial. I get that. And that was a GT2 Evo splitter. But this one, I mean, this car is so close to being great, yet so far away because that. Anyways, whatever.
JP, as I read this, with just 19,000 miles on the odometer, this car, by all accounts, sold organically at the close of auction for $110,000.
That's right.
And I would say that what's a 2012 991 Carrera S worth? Is that a $60,000 car with 20,000 miles on it?
Yeah, with a PDK and 20,000 miles, if it didn't have all the whiz bang stuff, you're probably looking at the 70s.
So could this? Okay, let's say 70.
Yeah.
This car's worth 110. Is that a $40,000 conversion, or did you spend more?
Oh boy, yeah, that's a really good question. I gotta think it's way more than $40,000 to buy all that stuff. I mean, if it's factory stuff, paint it and get it put on correctly and everything. Not to mention, I mean, the seats, the wing, the da 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 da. I mean, those HRE wheels are $10,000 alone. And I mean, I think they're hideous. Honestly, those wheels are just so bad.
Yeah, the execution here would have been, lights out if he had the correct wheels, which would have had either switch to knockoffs and then ditch the wing, and that would have been pretty impressive. And then personally, I would have gone for all black interior, but whatever. They didn't ask me.
You could have gone. I mean, the thing is, obviously, like you said, you can't swap to the GT3 wheels because it has lugs instead of a center lock, which I'm sure you could spring for the money to swap that out, but that's got to be just beyond obscenely expensive.
Right.
You could get the GT4 wheels that are a 9.9 that basically look the same as the GT3 wheels,
but they don't have the dish. They're flat. The dish.
Yeah.
There's
for
a big
the rear
difference.
wheel. I mean, it's the same shape.
If you look, it's a similar pattern, but there's so much more depth because the wheels are much wider on the GT3s than they are on the 4s. Yeah. So, anyways, when you see them side by side, it's a pretty noticeable difference. I'm not saying he couldn't have pulled it off. It probably would look better than.
It would be closer than the wheels than these HRE wheels.
But it would have been, the cool thing would have been to figure out a way to get the right wheels on there. Yeah. There was another crazy auction result on Friday that we would have covered. Can we talk about this for a second? You can't pull up pictures. Basically, a 2012 Lexus LFA that's still on the MSO. It's a yellow car.
Which platform are we talking about?
Delivery miles. It was BaT on Friday, or if you go to our docket, the link is there. If you go to our document, it's 2012 Lexus LFA in yellow with 100 miles on it. 56 miles or something. So it's still on the MSO. So you'd be the first registered owner of the car. So if you could go back in time and buy that car again, and we've seen the 25 Nürburgring examples, basically, sub 1,000-mile versions of that have broken $1 million, making it the first modern Japanese car to be $1 million collectible. What would somebody pay for a Lexus LFA with delivery miles and be the first owner? And the video, JP, the video that they made for this car is like softcore. It's really amazing. They're really well lit, and they take all the parts apart. And the car is it is truly a work of art. When you really examine this car from the inside out, it's pretty amazing. Anyway, that car sold on BaT on Friday for $808,000. And I have to believe that is a high water mark for a non-Nürburgring LFA. So there you go. $808,000 for a brand new LFA. I suspect we'll see a few more of these come to the online auction platforms, because this result, what do you say, JP? The tide rises all ships. I think this will help. But look at these pieces the guys are taking off. I mean, it's exquisite in there. I mean, it's got the sort of fit and finish that you expect from like Porsche's supercar, like a Carrera GT or a Ferrari Enzo or something. The carbon and the aluminum and stuff. It's really beautiful. And the video work that they did at the selling dealer for this car is pretty spectacular. If you get a chance, it's worth going back and watching. Turn the volume up. You'll enjoy the score. It's very romantic.
Yeah, I mean, if you're selling a car that's hundreds of thousands of dollars or anywhere near $1 million, it's like, why wouldn't you spend a few bucks on representing the car like this? I mean, we've seen a few singers over there on P-Car Market, and it's not up to P-Car Market or the platform to spend the money on making the video. It's up to the individual owner of the car to spend the money. So if you're the individual owner and you're going to sell something like this, spring for a couple of grand to get something like this made. It will bring you more money in the long run. It is a solid investment. Wow, look at the individual parts on this car. Geez.
And solidify your reputation as a seller.
Yeah.
I mean, you're marketing yourself while you're doing this. Like, come on, man,
parking your Singer in a parking lot next to a dumpster is just not a good plan. Yeah.
Good grief.
Yeah. Wow. What an amazing car. I've never been. Have you ever been in one of these? You've never driven one, have you?
I have not. No, absolutely not. But I am a huge fanboy of the LFA. I think they crushed it. I know it's a bummer that it's a single clutch, but you're talking about like an 9,000 RPM V10 with a triple exit exhaust. I mean, it is about as exciting a drive as there is. It's over 500 horsepower, but it's not quite 550. So it's exciting. It's not the fastest car on earth. A brand new 911 Turbo S will run circles around it, but this is about as exciting as it gets. And I think the car is gorgeous. I'm a huge fan. So unfortunately,
the only one I've ever seen in the wild was basically driven by some DJ here on the strip. It's like you see the drivers of these, and they're wearing a hoodie, and they're on their way to. It's 4 a.m, and they're going to go start their set at Hakkasan or something like that.
At 800 grand, they are going to find all of these are going to find their ways into the garages of old money.
You're probably right.
Now that they're no longer $300,000, $400,000 cars, these will cease to exist with the American jackass.
Yep. All right. What else we got? Whoa, wait.
All right, let's
we
do
don't
it.
have anything else. It's time to do.
Yeah,
it's all new cars. What are we doing? We haven't even gotten to today's cars. All right. Well, let's rip through some cars. We got some pretty cool ones to start out with today. Of course, we always start with a Porsche. Like our boys in Long Island like to say, the Porsches. We like the Porsches.
Which one do you want to start with? There's a couple of them.
Is there the X50 is what I have
X50,
in mind.
yeah, that's a hot car. I look, JP, this whatever this car sells for, it's still one of the best values out there. It's a 2003 Porsche 911 Turbo Coupe with the X50 package and a 6-speed manual, offered out of Applegate, California. Our car has 22,000 miles. It's a boring silver black. But with that third pedal and that extra 50 horsepower, in this case, I guess it's an extra 30 horsepower. This is just one of the best driving, more reliable, blistering performance. It's very accessible. You can go drive this car and feel like a hero because the turbos are all-wheel drive. So it's not a widowmaker by any stretch. It's just a great car. I agree with you. I know a lot of people are upset by the 996 platform, but I enjoy the ergonomics. I think the seats are really comfortable. Do I wish it had, adaptive sports seats? Sure, but I would not kick this car out of bed for eating cookies. This is a fantastic car. Now, there was a minute when you could buy these cars for under 60 grand. In fact, there was a couple of years, I'd say, where they were hovering around 40, 45. But our car has still 5 hours to go here in California and is already up to $67,000. It's not going to break 100 grand, but wherever it lands, it's still a great value because it's a Metzger engine. And it's just unbelievable performance for the dollar. And it's a great driving car. The suspension, the brakes, it's all cohesive. This is, Porsche's best effort back in period. So, JP, how many stickers would you put on yours?
Right.
That's the only question, right? How many decals is too many? Like,
Yeah, man.
more flair. You need more flair.
The ball
Tennis
sack
balls.
leather.
Yeah, the tennis balls would look great on the silver paint. Like, you say what you want about the plain Jane Arctic silver. I think tennis balls would pop on the silver.
You know, they had an X50 at Godden where you were at for a while, and we drove that, a year and a half ago or something like that, and it was priced kind of high at like 50. I was like, yeah, that's and now in hindsight, it's like, man, probably should have bought that car because obviously they've done
Should
it.
have. You'd still have it.
It's still, I think for guys our age, it's difficult because we remember, around 10 years ago when these just totally dumped in value. High mileage ones were like in the 30s or even like right at 30. So it's hard for me to wrap my head around the idea of getting a 996 of any kind and spending more than $50,000 on one. And I'm not a 996 hater. I am consistently a fan of 996s. I love the nose on this car. I've said it over and over again that the nose of this car, the nose of this specific car, the turbo and the Mark IIs is better looking than any base 997 nose. I'm not talking GT3 or GTS or whatever, but this nose with these headlights, these are not the fried eggs. Shut the hell up. This is not a fried egg. The fried egg is the Mark 1. But it's just a dramatic looking car with the big, gaping holes in the front for the turbo scoops and stuff like that. It's really cooling. Distinctive. Yeah. So, it's a cool ass car and it deserves to be worth a bunch of money, but the 997 turbo is decidedly better and is worth spending the extra money. But this car still lives in that whole best bang for the buck category. Where do we think this one's going to land with only 20-something thousand miles? That's pretty darn great.
JP, as much as you love this car, I'm going to make you love it even more. I forgot to mention that this car already has H&R coilovers on it. So This car is already set up to be driven and enjoyed. They make no mention of pinning the lines on the Metzger engine. It's something you just have to do. When we talk about spending $3,000 on an IMS bearing on a $20,000 996, you roll your eyes and you go, I don't have to. But when it comes to spending $3,000 to pin the lines on your Metzger engine, and you're usually spending about $100,000 for that car, it's really not that big a deal. So even if it hasn't been done, that's not going to hold back the price. My opinion.
For the record, it's a hell of a lot more than $3,000. It's like closer to 10. It's an expensive.
To pin the lines?
Yeah. It is. It's not really expensive.
Guaranteed. I have been told.
More
differently.
Told wrong. Well, I mean, look, I know multiple people have done it recently. It is like more like an $8,000 or $9,000 job, and it's one of those things where while you're in there, do a bunch of other stuff too. So you're gonna spend significant money to do it and do it right. There might be some hack
that makes more sense. That there might be. Again, what I was told that it's very similar to an IMS bearing, that you get it done for $3,000 just the lines. But if like changing the timing belt in your Ferrari, while you're in there, you're going to do a bunch of other stuff, then that makes sense that you're going to spend $7,000, $8,000, or even $10,000 because while you're in there, you'll whatever else you'll do. But
don't listen to either of us. Do your research.
Do your own research. Pinning the cooling lines is sort of a necessary evil with that. With all that being said, I still think this is a great car. JP, it was at $67,000. I think it brings another 20. I'm going to go $87,000 for this low mile example of X50 with a stick. $87,000 to you.
That is a high bid, and normally I'd go, you're bonkers out of your mind. But gosh, I think you're probably right. I'm going to go a little under and say 85 and say it's a total toss-up which one of us is correct. I don't think it makes 90. There's no way. But
I don't think so either.
I think is the top. And hey, that could be. Start your week off with a Yahtzee on that one. That would be how cool would that be.
It's just under 22,000 miles. It's silver black. It's X50. It's manual. I mean, that's the one everybody wants. I want that car.
Yeah,
I want to put tennis balls on it. That's it. All right. Let's look at the other Porsche real quick. It's a 1984, also on Bring a Trailer, because Bring a Trailer is the only one that's open today. Yeah. Bring a Trailer and the Bit Nerds. It's a 1984 Porsche 944 5-speed. Now, you and I, we tend to bag on Porsches that haven't been driven. But tell me there's nothing wrong with this 23,000-mile example of the first-gen 944 offered out of Marion, Illinois. The the consignor suggests that the car needs tires. The tires that are on the car have timed out. But other than that, the fact that this car hasn't been driven is just more like a preservation example, not a car that, I mean, look, it could have some sort of atrophy if it's in a hot climate. But this is just a low mile example that just wasn't driven or loved enough. Fuchs wheels on this car. 2.5 liter inline four with a 5-speed manual transaxle, limited slip differential. There it is. I mean, that's the first transaxle car that Porsche built everything on. And it's interesting because we've seen like low mile turbos start to break the bank, but we really haven't seen any of the normally aspirated 944s bring respectable money. And I don't think this car is either. With under 5 hours to go, our car's sitting at just $14,000, and I don't think it's going to break 20. So what do you think, JP?
Yeah, I mean, once again, this is a car that they should have spent some money on photography and maybe even like a little, a serious detail on this car, because with as few miles it has, with the right photography, this car could really, really pop. It has the stone guard in front of the left rear fender, and in some of the photos, they're known to fade. It's a clear sticker basically, and that sticker is 30 some odd years old sitting there or more, it just looks terrible in these snapshots on an iPhone in someone's driveway. This car's bright guards red with the tan and black interior. I'm trying to get the interior pictures to see how good the condition is in there.
If you get a picture of the back of the car, will you stop? Because I'm going to make a Radwood comment on the car. Just the back of the car where you can see the license plate. It's crooked. And it goes back to that thing. Yeah. It's a crooked plate thing. It's like, come on, man, you're not even trying. So I agree with you, JP. This consignor, that picture, I don't know if you can see it as well in that picture, but it's off.
Yeah, it's all
it's off.
It's all banged
and
up.
It's just, and it's just like I don't know. I have an OCD, and it's like, oh, come on, man.
Well, I mean, look, you're trying to get premium for a car. This is a car that could. We have not seen any 944s really pop, right? They keep failing to really bring big money, and I think it's partially because so many of them just. They're either the car has, the right amount of miles, but it's very clearly it's been just driven to hell, or it's got a bunch of mods, or it's got a cracked up dash, or we haven't seen one that's like, oh my gosh, that has the perfect photography. It's been kept really well. This car has the potential to be the car that breaks that $20,000 barrier. But with these boring ass photos and like a lack of attention to detail and just this casualness to it, look, this is a great ad on Craigslist, but on something like BaT where you're getting tens of thousands of eyeballs and people that have the money to spend on a car like this, you're wasting your time. You're wasting everyone's time, seller. What the hell were you thinking? Where is this car going to land?
So it's at $14,000. JP, I still think somebody will see what's there and maybe get past some of the stuff that you and I kind of harp on correctly, I might add. I don't think it breaks 20, but I think it will get $19,000.
Okay, I mean, I think that's a pretty good bid. I'm going to say.
I'm also pretending like it's not a holiday. So we could have a holiday could hold these cars back. So our X50 could fail to sell, and this car could fail to get another bid. But we're at $17,000. I don't think that's a bad bid. Yeah. I think that's fair.
Did it say timing belt and water pump? Did you mention that?
It just seemed like he didn't spend any money on it.
Yeah, I mean, that's obviously you're going to have to spend a couple grand on some maintenance if that stuff hasn't happened. These cars are terribly reliable other than that. So, all right. Interesting car. It'd be a great car to get hold of one of these with low miles. That'd be kind of fun. All right, what else we got?
Imagine snagging this car for $15,000 or $16,000.
Yeah,
I mean,
right.
You could turn that into a $25,000 car pretty easily.
There you go, guys. There's an opportunity. Buy this car for $15,000 and turn it around. Drive it for a while, clean it up, and hire me
the
to
tires,
take photos of it. And
exactly.
You'll get $20,000 more. All right, what else we got?
Let's go to, and I already going to say it incorrectly. Sequim. How do you say it?
Squim. We got another car from Squim. Are you kidding?
Squim, yeah. Our seller, whose name is Rafi, no relation, is from Sequim, Washington. He's got this 2006 Pontiac Solstice with just 855 miles. This car is a no-reserve auction lot, super low miles. It's had a couple of owners. Basically, Pontiac wanted to make a car that would compete with the S2000. Believe it or not, they bought an S2000 tore it all apart, put it back together, and then used that as the inspiration for making this car and the Scion, whatever red line that came, basically the same
Saturn,
car.
the Saturn.
Saturn, is that what it was?
Yeah,
Saturn, yeah, Saturn version of the car. Anyway, I don't think these cars were a commercial success. It has a 2.4-liter Ecotec inline four with a 5-speed manual, limited slip differential. It's rear-wheel drive. But it only makes 177 horsepower and 166 pound-foot of torque. And these cars never really, they failed to move the needle, if that makes any sense to you. By the way, get to a picture of that interior and show the audience what they call steel gray and sand beige interior. It is one of the more hideous interiors I've seen on a modern car. And that's saying a lot. Anyway, great idea, poor execution, never commercially viable. And this car, I don't even know if they ever got an update. They ran them for a couple of years and then they just killed it off because they were just burning money as they produced them. So what do you think of the Pontiac Solstice? Do you hate it less than I do?
Yeah, I do. I don't think they just stopped making them. I think Pontiac went out of business. Wasn't it? Wasn't it that? This was
Pontiac didn't go out of business. GM stopped trying to make Pontiac a success.
Well,
they're over diversified.
That's the same thing. That's the same thing.
Yeah.
The point is that Pontiac didn't continue and just stop making this car. They just stopped making all cars. So Pontiac went away, and so did Saturn. And I think this was just one of the cars that was in their lineup at the time. I'm with you on the poor execution. It was. Look, I remember when this car came out, and a friend of mine got one. I was just like, "What are you doing? Get out of here!" And my perception of the car was not that it was an S2000 knockoff. I thought it was more like, I thought it was trying to be like a Miata and live in that space. And I frankly thought it would have a front wheel drive. I didn't realize that it was a rear wheel drive. When I drove one, I was like, "Wait, is this a rear wheel drive car?" And he's like, "Yeah." I'm like, "Oh, okay." I mean, and it really is more suited to be a Miata attacker than it is S2000, because it's no S2000. They did make a 6-cylinder version of this car.
Did they?
And, God, it may have been an 8. I mean, there's one that has a big, huge engine.
No, there's no 8.
6,
that's for sure. Yeah, it's probably a big 6. It's probably like a 3.5-liter 6, which means now it's nose heavy, and it's still not fast. It doesn't rev, and it's not exciting. I just, like I said, great idea.
Have you driven one?
No, I don't know.
Again, they're not great. Don't get me wrong. Yeah. It's not a great car, but it's not as it's not as crappy as you would think. Make a great rental car.
That's you stole my thing. When I look at this car, I see a rental fleet. That's all I see. It's just a car for the uninitiated that needs a convertible so they can go at Instagram when they're in South Beach or wherever the hell they are. This car is a joke.
But none of the ones in a rental fleet are going to have 3 pedals like this one does. They're all going to be the slushy, crappy automatic thing. So you can actually have fun in this car. Look, if it's not much money, these days cars are so expensive, and anything that's rear-wheel drive with 3 pedals is going to break the bank. Is this an opportunity for a young enthusiast or someone that just wants something to mob around in and be able to kind of have some old school fun and not really care what it looks like? I mean, like I said, would you rather have this or a Miata? I don't know. Certainly an S2000 is going to win over this, but where's this car going to land? How much?
Here's some interesting numbers for you, JP. This car was $25,000 when it was brand new 15 years ago. Wow. Our car has less than 1,000 miles on it. It's sitting at $15,000 with just over an hour to go on BaT. It's already got 25 bids, so there's definitely some action on this. Is it going to bring sticker? I doubt it. I don't even think it'll bring $20,000, but I'm going to say $19,000 for the second time today because that matches my bid on the 944. So 19,000. So would you rather spend 19 on the Solstice or the 944? You're taking the 944. So stop defending that pile of shit.
Of course, I'm taking the 944, but when we make predictions, we're not saying what would we buy it for. The prediction is, how many. Look, there's a bunch of lawn chair dudes out there that love Pontiacs, and this is one with low miles, and they want to own this car. So, I'm going to say 21 and say it could get up to 25. That's really, really, really
wow. You think so, huh? All right.
I'm not saying it's worth that. I'm saying that there are a pile of people out there that will think it is. If it had the bigger motor, it would definitely be in the mid to high 20s.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's not worth that to me, but I do think it might be worth that. Listen, your bid, I wouldn't bet against it. All right, JP, let's look at a couple other really weird cars. Let's take a look at this 1984 Ford Bronco XLT, which is sort of the top of the line. That's got the 5.8 liter, which only makes 150 horsepower, but it's like 300 pound-foot of torque. Out of Portland, Oregon, it's showing authentically 4,000 miles, but they're listing it as true mileage unknown. Back in 06, this car was involved in an accident with another vehicle, and the selling dealer says that he can see that there's evidence of some paintwork, which is congruent with the fact that this car has been in an accident. But despite this having an automatic transmission, it does have a removable hardtop. It's a great colorway in black with the red interior. I love the off-road tires on the 15-inch sort of centerline looking wheels. It bums me out that it's 3-speed automatic. I think this car would have tremendous value if it was a 4-speed manual. I think if it was a 4-speed manual, the accident wouldn't matter, that this car would bring $25,000, $30,000, maybe more. But with the 3-speed automatic and the bad Carfax, I wonder if this vehicle will break 20, which it might. So JP, with 4.5 hours to go, it's sitting at $17,000. It looks to be, I'm not saying pristine, but like, it's just one that isn't all used up already. And it's certainly, a footnote in history. I mean, look at the sort of pattern on the bench seats and the fake wood on the dash. Does that not take you back to when we were in high school? So what do you think of this sort of unused or forgotten Ford Bronco XLT?
Yeah, I'm definitely feeling like I'm back in Boy Scouts or something like that. I don't know how many millions of these I rode in the back of one of these. I normally like big knobby tires, on SUVs and stuff like that, and I think that generally helps the value. This one, I don't know. I almost feel like this one, if it, because this one looks like it's a couple inches higher than stock. It looks like it's had a Rancho lift or something like that, which functionally that all makes sense and that makes it a cool rig. But I think value-wise, I think this thing would go for a lot more money if it looked stock, because whatever you say about the repaint or restoration, at least at 10 feet, it looks really nice. If this thing were stock height and had stock street tires on it, maybe just a little bit, all your all season tires or something like that, something that looked like it came from factory, I think it does better. This has kind of a modern brodozer badassness to it, and this is certainly the way I would like to. If I owned this car, and was going to drive it around, this is what I would want it to look like. But I think it's worth more, by a big margin if it were to look stock. I think this is this takes it out of Radwood. Like, you could not take this to Rad. You could take this to Radwood; they would let you, but it would look out of place because you couldn't take, like, let's say you found a VHS video camera from 1987. You see people do this all the time. They take videos of of cars that they've done up. It's like, it's period. It's an old car, but it has a bunch of mods on it that are modern. You never would have seen one that looked like this back in 1987 or whenever this car's from. So, I make it stock, get more money. Where's it going to land?
Yeah, I was wrong about the horsepower. I was right about the torque. So it's 210 horsepower, 305 torque. 4.5 hours to go out of Portland, Oregon. 4,000 miles, but true mileage unknown. $17,000 currently. Interestingly, JP, there are 10 bids. I think this car has got a little ways to go. I think somebody's going to like what they see here and find the value in it. I'm going to go $24,000. Where are you at?
Okay. All right. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I was going to, I'll go the over. I'll go 25. Originally I was thinking a little lower, but I thought you were going to go low. So yeah, I'll go 25. I think this car really has a lot of eyeball. But I think if it looked stock, I think it's like 30. So interesting to see what'll happen here.
I agree. And if that thing had a manual, more. I think it would brought, a lot more than that. So there you go. All right, JP, last car, and one I've never heard of. Excuse me, but this car is a 2019 Wolf Racing Cars GB08 Thunder, offered out of Pahrump, Nevada. Now, it's interesting that the car is in Pahrump because I'm guessing it's in a storage facility because the owner likes to take it to Spring Mountain, which is the racetrack out near Pahrump. And Spring Mountain is an incredible facility, and there are track days galore. So if you are a member at Spring Mountain or best friends with a member at Spring Mountain and you have access to the track without some school coming in and doing a track day, this would be a great weapon to take out on the reg. So what we're looking at here, JP, is basically a monocoque, a carbon fiber monocoque construction with exposed carbon fiber bodywork. It's got push rod suspension and adjustable wings. And the drivetrain, believe it or not, is just a 1-liter Aprilia Motorcycles RSV V4. that bike still probably makes close to 200 horsepower and probably revs to like 14,000 RPM. And it has a sequential manual gearbox, a 6-speed SMG. This thing is probably just unreal to drive and probably carries a lot of cornering speed because of the active aero. And I think this guy's even running slicks on his center lock wheels. This vehicle transacted in February of this year on BaT for $68,000. But with 4.5 hours to go, is sitting at just $45,000. Now, it's got new photos, but why on earth would a guy have a car this exciting and be a track toy and not have some onboard video of this car so you can hear it? The fact that there's a video missing, I think this guy's going to leave a ton of money on the table. In fact, he may fail to sell. JP, with 4.5 hours to go and $45,000, it's only at 4 bids. I don't think he's going to see his 68 because, simply put, he didn't put a video of this incredible and rare car.
Yeah, this definitely deserves photos. But at the same time, this is one of those cars that this is like the romanticism of this car. Any romanticism is not going to sell it. Right. It's just, this is not a car that you buy on a whim. This is not like, I mean, I look at this thing and go, holy crap, that's just amazing. Oh my God, I want this thing. But I know there's like, I'm not buying this. I'm just not, because I'm not a member at Spring Mountain. I wish I were.
I wish I were too.
Yeah. And you can't drive this on the street. So you're not going to, this is like a lot of cars. I'm curious what you think. How many cars on BaT, if you had, from a percentage point of view, how many sales on any given day are point of purchase? Like you're in line at the grocery store. Remember when people used to go to grocery stores and not have stuff delivered? And you're like, oh, there's some orange Tic Tacs. I'm getting those, because you're standing there and you buy a People magazine back in the day. This seems like the type of car that that's impossible. I'm not going to be like, I'm going to buy a race car. Unless you are a race car driver, unless you are a member at a track, unless you are looking for a car to track, that is a very, very, very small market. No one's just going to be like, I need to have this. So, yeah. But that said, if you are looking for a race car, there aren't that many for sale. And finding something like this, if you know about it, if this car got out, is BaT a big enough market of race car drivers, of track car guys, that, would this guy be better off trying to sell this on a race car forum? I don't know.
I think, look, he certainly would. It'd give him a little more time to bring this car to market if it was on a forum, but clearly he's in a hurry to cash it out. He bought it in February and he's not even using it for the entire season. Although you could make the argument that it's the off season in the dead of summer at Spring Mountain, right? He can't use this thing for the next 2 months because it's too damn hot. It'll melt the carbon fiber right off that thing.
Yeah, I would not want to sit in that thing out on
right
now.
No, not at all. So that's in Nevada where, quote unquote, we live. That's a winter vehicle. That's a winter, spring, and fall, but not in the summer. I don't know, JP. It's a really narrow market. I agree with that. That's a absolute correct take. There's also the argument that BaT is a big enough platform that if somebody's looking for one of these rare, sort of unusual cars, they would find it. It's a tremendous amount of video, but I don't know. I don't see him getting his $68,000 back on this lot, not in the next couple hours. So I'm going to say 50 grand, and it probably fails to sell at that price unless he's willing to just rip off the Band-Aid and let it go. But 50 grand, and that makes him 18 shy of his investment in the car. I don't think it sells at that price. What about you?
I don't know. I have no idea. I mean, until you said what it sold for before, I'm like, I don't know. Is this a $40,000 car? Is this a $200,000? What the hell do I know? I don't know.
It's got a motorcycle engine. Come on, man.
Yeah. So the only thing I have to go by is trends on BaT. If it sold 6 months ago for one price, just about everything is selling for a higher price now. So I'll go 65, even though that's lower than the original sale price. It's still above your bid, and it gives me some padding. That's just a dumb guess. And what the hell do I know?
Who knows? You might be right. Like I said,
clue.
If these things are 150 grand, 65 is still a steal, and it might go there. And if it gets to 65, I bet it sells. So we'll see what happens. Clearly, we don't know anything about this car, but it's interesting. And I thought it was kind of fun that it was in Pahrump out at the track. Can you imagine Solomon squeezing into that thing and then running circles around everybody? That would be hilarious.
I'm sure we have
watching him pass people would be amazing. And 2, watching him get in and out of that thing would also be amazing. So shout out to Solomon, our very dear friend, who is a hardcore track guy in hours spent, but not in, limits pushed.
He would be much happier, and I'm sure he'll be the first person to tell you they'd be way happier in his Miata.
Miata.
The track. He's like, it's got air conditioning.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
It's like I get in
Oh my
on my
God.
cycle, I turn on the stereo, and he listens
Oh my
to
God.
ABBA all the way around the track.
That's too right. Right.
We love Solomon.
Ricky Martin. I imagine Solomon's listening to Ricky Martin when he wants to turn it up. That's
Yacht
too
Rock
funny.
on Sirius Radio. All right,
Yacht
guys. There it is. That is a Monday holiday edition of the Bid Nerds. Kind of a sleepy one here. We're a little slow today. We both had stuff going on last night. We will see you tomorrow. We'll get jacked up for tomorrow's episode. We have got a couple of guests getting worked out for this week. We will have third nerds. Don't forget, if you aren't planning on coming and seeing us already, you better start making plans. We're going to be at
Buy your
Radwood.
tickets.
Yeah, this Saturday, Radwood is happening. The first one is Radwood is back, so we will be there. We will be broadcasting for a couple hours on site. So come over and say hello while you're at Radwood, and we will give you a Bid Nerds tennis ball. Look at that.
Tennis
We've got
balls.
'em. Boom. We've
Sweet.
got them in stock, ready to roll. Maybe we'll have some Derfas Nation hats out there. Make sure you check out Porsche Road Trip on Pluto TV. Michael Deeb, anything else you want to say before we dip on out of here? And we'll see you on Tuesday.
No.
Nope. Well, there's your answer, I guess. Everything you say, just like, meh. There's just no affirmative,
No.
negative. Just no, I don't. I don't want to talk to you people at all.
Get those nerds!
Go on.
Get those nerds!